we're at quorum?
You're at quorum, yes.
Okay. I'll call the meeting to order at 12:02, and then we should do roll call.
Okay. Chris Martin here.
Ed Knight here.
Lisa Ducharme here.
Kate,
Kate Nato here.
Molly Robinson here. I don't have the agenda in front of me. Do we have minutes to approve?
no, I have a whole bunch to get you guys.
Okay. Then I think it's over to Danielle. And where's Katie?
Katie is not able to join us this morning, and she and I touched base, so I have some updates to share, but she doesn't have anything to make visual to us today. So I'll dive into project updates. I did want to share the floor. So on our project updates agenda, I have a little conversation about the announcement of the logo and its reception, which I wanted to share the floor with Kate on. Wanted to spend time today discussing the rollout of the logo, hear any updates on wayfinding from Maud, open the floor for a conversation on trademarking. And I know we're waiting to hear from Katie on that, but open to see if anyone else had any thoughts on it, give an update on the seal, and then start talking about offboarding and what that could look like. So that's what I'm planning to share today, but I thought we'd start. Kate, are you free to share more about what the logo reception has been thus far?
Sure.
And your announcement? Sure. I was so excited.
Yeah. So it went out on the town website yesterday, a full article that the select board had approved the new logo, and then it was also shared on Facebook yesterday. It seems to be being received really well. There's been currently 139 likes and loves for it. Lots of positive feedback. Someone had to of course share their version with a trailer and a chair, which is totally on brand for Belchertown. I thought that was really funny, but I also love how people are embracing it to that end. Some people have mentioned how it would look amazing on shirts, how it would look great on stickers, and those are all things to think about coming down the road. But yeah, it's been really positive with how people are taking it so far. And I do appreciate, the stylistic.
Everybody knows the joke behind the trailer, right? Or no?
No.
Oh, for a long time, somebody just dumped off a trailer like near the railroad tracks on one of the roads, and it was just like suddenly there one day, like a trailer. And
yeah, it was on Bay Road.
On Bay Road, and like people started just making a meme out of it, and it became like a Facebook thing that like people were photoshopping it. They put like the characters of Breaking Bad in front of it. They put all kinds of other stuff in front of it, and there was there for like 2 weeks, and then one day it was just like gone. But then like a chair was there, and then like that chair was gone, and then another chair was there, and so it was just like this long, like for like a month long, it was just this meme that like, what's the deal with this location and the trailer and the chairs that keep showing up, and like who's.
And there were also chairs like around town and other places too. Like some were stuck like under the Stop and Shop sign, and some were left across the street at Food Town or Liquor Mart or whatever it's called in that area. Like for a while, there was just like random chairs like showing up places, and people sharing them on Facebook.
So now our Facebook groups are kind of, the trailer and the chair are kind of like synonymous with Belchertown now.
And of course, someone had to comment that it would be more perfect with Dunkin' Donuts and pizza being shown. So kind of tying it all back to the pizza from a couple of weeks ago.
So if the only negative feedback has been where's Dunkin' Donuts and pizza, and people making it their own by adding meme lore, I feel like that is a huge win. And I'm just sharing screen to show you this is not our official logo, but this is the version that that someone took ownership of and shared. So it's awesome that people are playing with it, right? And engaging with it in that way. So just wanted to share and was so excited when Kate shared that with me this morning.
I thought it was absolutely hilarious. It was a great way to start the day, in my opinion.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Kate, and for putting those announcements out there. So glad that the reception has been warm. In terms of our official rollout, Katie is working on the brand guidelines, which is the sort of PDF guidebook of how and when and where this logo or the smaller circular logo will be used. We've shared everything with Stantec so that they can, keep their project rolling as well. And in terms of rollout, Kate is already starting to use the logo, but part of what I wanted to discuss today is how we make this logo available for all of the other departments once we have the PDF of the brand guidelines in place. So one suggestion that I had that I'm borrowing from Amesbury and the sort of genesis of this project, I discussed it with Katie, was to present a webinar where we share the logo, the design and ideation process in greater detail than we were able to do at the select board meeting, and share the brand guidelines so that we have a recorded teaching tool that can be used if new staff are onboarding, and also a tool that the communications committee can share out if needed. So I wanted to do a gut check with you all to see if you would like to do a webinar like that. When is a good time to do it? Katie and I are both available. I think it'd be great to have some committee members involved. I think it'd be great to have Maud involved to share what happens with the logo once it's done, but wanted to open for discussion with you all.
So I did want to kind of step back from that a little bit. I love the idea of a webinar. I think that's awesome. Something that we have to think about that may be particular to Belchertown is we don't have an intranet. Like, we have an internet, but we don't have an intranet. So we don't have like a source where like the logo files can be uploaded where town employees can always go and get a clean copy. So with things like that, there's always the risk of people getting copies and then kind of manipulating them, like inadvertently not doing it on purpose, because that does happen, and then sharing those copies with other people. So that's something that I want to think about how we can best address when we do the webinar and put together these branding guidelines. Chris had shared with me the other day another town, I think it was Amesbury, where you can go and request the logo files through a portal on their website to be able to use, as well as the town seal and stuff. So I don't know if that's something we should look at. I don't know if Chris wants to share his screen with how they did that, but that's certainly a challenge that we have here.
So I don't have it up at the moment. Didn't know that we're jumping into this. So I have a couple thoughts on all of this. First off, the job of this committee is definitely to just get the logo to the town and get it in a usable file that they can drop into whatever documents and things that they need. I think a few different versions, SVG, TIFF, stuff like that. Thank you for pulling it up for me. And as well as instructions, whether that's video or PDF or both, that sort of say like these are the rules that we laid out around this, and this is how it should be used. I think that's incredibly important to do, especially as time goes on. We want to be able to refer back to those documents for like any new members in the town or anybody who tries to like change it or whatever. Also, because if any town residents or any companies or something try using the logo, technically the logo is owned by the town. So we need to have certain rules and regulation things around that, and it needs to be defined there. The Amesbury request, that I believe that this page is actually a request where people from outside of the town government can say, hey, I'd love to use your logo for some sort of branding event or something, and they need to describe the intended use of the logo. So this is where somebody external can actually say, hey, I'd like to use this. We're doing a nonprofit event in town or something like that, and we want to have the town support. And not, I don't think this is necessarily like for internal government people to like say, hey, I need the logo as well for this document. That I think would end up coming down to either having it behind Kate, your department, or even IT, where like, here are the files. If you need them, you can request them, and like, please don't change them.
Yeah, I definitely would want to keep the files in the communications department versus the IT department, because the communications channel and people tend to know better about when you might need to use a certain type of file, and just to kind of take any of that guesswork out of there.
Right. Yeah, so that I think like I said earlier, ultimately, like, it's just our obligation to get those files to the town and to the right person in town to hold on to them. I personally, I know it's important, Kate, for you and the town to know how to distribute this, but I think, like, to some extent that is on the town to figure out, and not this committee.
Yeah, so I guess to that end, would you say that you're not requesting that town employees use the back end to request files if they need to? Or do you think we should keep that simply for people out facing?
I mean, I feel like it should be like held in one area, and I realize, like, this is what an intranet is for, is to have a single file where you point everybody to it and say, this is the file you need. Don't delete it, don't remove it, right? And the same way that you would with like a Google Drive folder, that you can say, here's everything you need. You can download it, you can pull the files from here, but nobody can like delete them or update them or edit them. Without something like that, it makes it difficult. But at the same time, like, everybody in town needs to now update their files and have this document. So it seems like it should be distributed to everybody.
That I agree with Chris, but this is not our purview.
Right.
Our charge is to do this material. It is to turn it over to the selectmen when the job of this committee is done. After that, it's up to the selectmen and Steve to figure out what happens to all of it.
Yeah.
Well, I was also tasked with helping think through the rollout of this design, right? And making sure that it's something that is accessible and that people know exists and can use and know how to use. So that's why we're discussing it here. And it's not the purview of this committee to do the rollout, but it's something that Kate is working on and is on the committee. And, I hear you, Kate, that if we do a webinar, one of the questions we should answer is how and where do you access this logo? So if you work within the town, you received an email with a link to a Dropbox file where the logos will always exist, and you can always reach out to Kate if you can't find that and need to download it and access it. If you're outside the town, here's a web form that you can use to request files when you need it. Is that kind of what you were thinking, Kate?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, exactly.
Okay. So is there a Dropbox? I've received stuff from municipal employees via Dropbox, from Belchertown employees via Dropbox.
I don't think there's an official one.
I don't think there's an official one either.
No, there's not an official one.
Okay. So happy to continue the conversation offline, Kate, about like the best way to get it to people. I think an email saying like, here are all of your communications materials, and whether it's a Dropbox or a Google Drive or some other share the files, like we can chat about what makes sense.
But definitely can't be a Google Drive.
Kate, perhaps we could build something on the back end of the website. There is a section of the website that the town can go to that residents can't.
Oh, awesome.
Perhaps there's just a page with a whole bunch of links, and it's like, what are you using it for? Use this link or this link, right? And just have all of them there, have the PDF for it. We'll just create a page that is a quick, like, they can go to the page, they can click on it and get what they need. We'll just download.
Yeah.
That sounds
Yep.
great.
Totally think that's great. Thank you. I didn't realize we had that.
Yep.
In terms of a webinar to talk about this process, I imagined it being like a general audience. So it could be something that staff watch if they're like curious, like, how am I using this thing? Why am I using this thing? If they're new, being onboarded, it could be shared. And it also could be something for the general public and for you all to have on record. I will say, if it's something you want to do, I just want to be mindful of Maud's contract ending and my time and Katie's time. So I'd like us to schedule it for some time in June if you'd like to do it. But wanted to, and I hear one of the questions is how and where do people access the logo from Kate? I'm also suggesting, what is the process? How did we arrive here? And I wanted to hear folks' thoughts on whether you'd want to be involved, whether you want to do this. And if you say, no, we don't want to do a webinar, then we don't have to, we can take it off the table. But what are your thoughts?
I think the webinar is a great idea. I'm curious to see what others think.
I actually think it's important that we do a Zoom call, open Zoom, where people can come on and ask questions after we get the actual documents and they're in a place, so that immediately people will get access to whatever it is they need. I have found that even though you may only have one or two people who come on, what's nice is, because it'll be recorded, people will be able to actually see it, and they'll follow up on it after the fact. You could potentially, even when you put it out there, you can ask people to submit their questions in advance, just in case there are people who are not there who want to ask questions and because they can't make it. And if it's possible to have one during the duty day and one during the after hours, so that you cover people who can't during the duty day stop what they're doing to participate.
Any other thoughts? Would anyone from this committee like to be involved in presenting content for the webinar? And then maybe we can just have a little working group that figures out the structure and framework of that.
Obviously, that's something I would be involved in.
Okay, great.
And I'd be happy to as well.
Thanks, Lisa.
And Katie would lead the design portion, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you need more help, I'll help, but it sounds like 3 could be good.
Well, I'll get a little thread going and we can just figure out a time to meet. Are we able to meet with Katie, Lisa, and Molly? I mean, Kate, Lisa, and Molly?
And
Yes.
not forum. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll follow up with the 3 of you and Katie to find a time, and maybe Maud as well if
Yeah, you
she's
just
available.
can't. You can't have 4 or more. Yeah.
Great. And we'll probably look at scheduling that for late June. Maud, are there any updates on wayfinding that you want to share?
Sure. So where the Stantec has the brand materials, both the full logo and the logo mark without Belchertown below it, the circle. And they've been developing some comps, and they're working with department heads, municipal leadership to get a kind of initial gut check. And then they're going to hone in on a few design directions, very similar to this process here. And we just finalized right before this meeting that we're going to have our wayfinding signage advisory group meeting on June 4th, where they're going to look at the signage options and get some last looks, last tweaks. From there, they're going to put together and finalize the material. It'll go to the select board. Again, it's a very parallel kind of process. and will result in our signage templates moving forward. So it's very exciting, and thank you all for keeping in mind how these projects interlock and the timelines here. We've been able to stay on course, which is great.
Thanks, Maud. And Kate raised a question to Katie, which this morning, which I haven't heard back yet, so she is going to weigh in on this. But Kate raised the question of whether or not to trademark the logo, and I didn't know if anyone on this committee had thoughts or experience with that, or suggestions as to how to approach the trademarking conversation.
My experience is very different from what we're talking about here. But I know trademark is very expensive and it's going to require ongoing maintenance fees from legal to protect the mark. I don't know if that's something the town wants to do, but like the purpose of it is so that we can basically stop others from using a mark that's similar to ours. And I mean, I don't even know if we would pass a trademark review. Like the trademark office is trying to avoid creating confusion in the marketplace. Like if logos look similar, people are going to get confused between towns. I don't know if that's a reasonable thing that we should be concerned about. So I don't know, the cost question is a pretty big one.
And I think the second question you have to ask is Belchertown willing to fight and go to court if somebody uses the logo that should not be using? My recommendation to businesses, if they're not a really big business and the logo itself is so so hard for somebody else to use kind of thing for their own purpose, is just to copyright it. And by the way, you don't have to pay to copyright it. You just do the copyright thing and then that's it. And then it's copywritten. Most people trademark logos, but the cost of trying to fight for your logo is too expensive in the long run. Forget about the actual start, unless you happen to have a lawyer in Belchertown who does trademarks, who's willing to do it at no cost, which sometimes that may be the case. But I usually recommend they do a simple copyright, not the official one, just the one that this is ours because it's original artwork for all practical purposes. You've got the proof of it. If anybody does it, you used it. And then you do a cease and desist if somebody's using it inappropriately. But you already also have your rules and regulations, and you're going to have your policy pages on how people can use it. So if it was me, that's how I would do it, only because I can't imagine somebody being stupid enough or unprofessional enough to use a Belchertown logo as their own kind of thing.
So I want to throw in as well that this might be a conversation for the town clerk, because every town is allowed a town seal and a town logo by state law. So there may be protections around this already, that once it's adopted and taken into place, that it is within the laws of Massachusetts already. Because, you know, as I said, we're allowed a logo. So we might not even have to do any of this. Once the clerk adopts it, it's done and done.
That's a great point, Chris, because really my concern was somebody taking it and then throwing it on the bumper sticker or the shirt and profiting off the town's logo for their personal gain.
Yep.
Or to fund, whatever. So that's great. And I think following up with Terry is an excellent idea.
Yeah. Do we have somebody that can do that? Wants to do that?
Yeah, I can do that.
All right, cool. Thank you.
But that's where the
I would
guidelines
just
are going
say-
to have to be clear on how to use it. And that when you cannot use it to profit off of, is going to have to be in the guidelines.
I would say when following up with Terry, I would probably just wait until next week with the annual town meeting this weekend.
Gotcha. Yeah, she might not respond.
Yeah. I'm well aware of what Terry's workload is right now.
And Lisa, thank you. Lisa, Chris, Molly, thank you all for your expertise on this. I would add, we want in the, and Katie knows this, but I'll just say here, we want to say like you can't use the logo for profit without written permission, right? Without explicit permission from the town, because we might want to say, yes, Little League, you can make bumper stickers and sell them at your bake sale, right? Like that might be something that the town wants to support. So we'll just make really clear what the permission process is like. And if we have that web form that we can link to in the brand guidelines about how people can access and use and get permission, I think that that is great. And then it'll be on Kate and Steve and the select board to figure out, when do you want to say yes? How do you say yes to your requests for use? I think if we have demand for use, then that is also a really, really good sign that people are, and it means that the logo is working. People want to use it on bumper stickers. What a dream. Like that would be great. So there are times where you're really going to want to say yes. And we want to make it clear how people can get that yes.
And I think too, like Kate, you'd have a leg to stand on if the logo's on the website and it's copywritten just by being there, like Lisa was saying. And like I remember earlier this year, a random Facebook group was using what kind of looked like the town logo. So I think you'd have a leg to stand on to say, no, you're not allowed to if that comes up again.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we did reception, rollout, wayfinding, trademarking, town seal update. So I think Terry has been really busy. Katie has been following up, trying to get clarity on what the absolute elements of the seal are. I believe we're still waiting for the original source of the image of the seal, one that's a bit clearer. So Katie has been refining the digitized version that she has, but is still waiting on Terry. So in the meantime, is working on brand guidelines while waiting for clarity from Terry. Our goal is to be able to present the digitized seal to this committee on June 11th. So that gives Terry ability to get through the weekend, get back to Katie next week, and it still gives Katie some time to work on refining and design. But that is where we're held up when it comes to the seal right now. But the hope is that the seal and the brand guidelines will both be presented on June 11th, which is our next meeting. The last thing on my agenda to chat with you all about was offboarding. So once the seal is complete and these brand guidelines are complete and we do a webinar, it's kind of on you all to determine like the future of this committee. But there are a couple of loose ends that I want to make sure are tied before we wind down our engagement. One, doing the webinar will give you like a really concrete record of our process and our work. You have a lot of the materials that locality has produced around the research report, summaries of our community engagement. We have all of our reports from our surveys, and all of this content, including our recorded meetings, are saved in the Google folder. So I know the town does not have intranet, but I want to make sure that someone, somewhere, somehow, that folder is saved and exists within the town. Because right now we are hosting it, and it's a lot of recorded data, which I'm happy to host until we find a place for it to go. But I want to make sure that the town has it. So that was a question that I had for you all about where the material goes.
You mean the town does not have specific guidelines on when they establish a town committee where the files are stored?
That's correct. We do not have an intranet. We do not have an internal file system. Everybody's computers are independent, and it is.
So which department does branding fall under?
I think it would fall under Kate's in this instance, or I think Maud's shaking her head. I was going to say Kate's or Maud's department with planning. But planning, I don't understand why they would.
So then we'd have to ask Kate to find the location for it because she'd be the owner of it per se.
Yes, I have made a note to find how we best want to store that.
Thank you, Kate.
And just raising it, right? Because we still have plenty of time, but I know it's going to take a couple of questions and there might be a Terry question involved. And I know that BCTV sometimes comes and records, and other towns will often just store the video recordings on a YouTube channel. That is a place where some of those files are kept. Right now we have MOV files and MP4 files and audio files and transcripts all in Arts Equity Group's server. So it's fine that they're there, but I also want to make sure that you have access to them in perpetuity. So just putting it out there for over the next few weeks to try to uncover where they should live for Belchertown.
So that's Terry's domain. Terry's and Kevin's.
Well, they're in charge of like the minutes, the agendas, all that other stuff that exists, and
Any town records.
is it everything? Even
Everything.
videos? I know that they need to monitor them and make sure they exist, but I don't know
If somebody puts in a public records request, it's Terry that's got to get them to retrieve them.
Oh, to like retrieve them. Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah,
in fact, she is the final person in the line of determining where all this stuff is. She will guarantee the stuff is stored in an accessible location.
Well, I don't
Sure.
think
So when a public request record comes in, Terry reaches out to the individual or the department that has that
is
information
true.
to provide it to her. So I think we can, I'll just simply ask Steve next time I see him where he thinks would be the best place for this information to live.
Well, that ultimately that'll wind up with Kevin for any electronic media.
I will simply just talk to Steve about it.
Thank you, Kate. I appreciate it. And then we can figure out a one-on-one time if we need to export or download or archive, if you need me for anything, if we transfer ownership, happy to do it however you need, if you need me involved. Those are my only updates. So we have our next meeting on June 11th where we're hoping to have a digitized seal and final brand guidelines for you. If Katie has final brand guidelines before then, we'll share them in advance so that folks can review them before our meeting, so that if you have any questions, I've taken note here to make sure that the note about copywriting and how the guideline, how the brand can or cannot be used for profit, and making sure that we're going through the right channels to get permission. But I'm happy to hand it over to you all if there's anything else that you want to discuss, if you have any questions about next steps. Otherwise, our agenda is lighter today because it's been heavy for the last 6 months.
Did we get any correspondence? Sounds like no. Nothing to discuss. There's no public here, so I think that means we can adjourn the meeting. Does someone want to make a motion?
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Midnight Eye.
Lisa Ducharme, aye.
Kate Nato, aye.
Chris Martin, aye.
Molly Robinson, aye. We are adjourned at 12:36.
All right.
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.